Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast.
Whoop whoop.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ashley.
Tonight we got a special guest in studio, Levi Harrill. What's going on, man?
How's it going, dude?
Oh, just living the dream down here in warmer weather.
Yeah, a lot warmer.
Yeah. So what originally got you into cars?
God, think it back, man. I spent summers and winter breaks in North Dakota with my grandpa, and always checking out like classics, even Hot Wheels on the shelf of the local grocery store. He loved like the 40s, 50s cars, big time. He always said they had the best style out of anything, and so grew up, with him, spending time with him and everything, and just kind of got a secondhand love for it and an appreciation for it. Okay. So that's really where it started. That little 99-cent Hot Wheel is what kickstarted all this.
It started a lot of ours.
Yeah.
Do you still mainly like the 40s and 50s cars?
Yeah, so recently I've actually found that I really enjoy like the teens, the 20s, and into the 30s. Pretty much anything pre-war. Okay. I found that I got a real kind of a love interest for those cars now. Used to be a lot of the 70s, 80s. My first car, my high school car, was a 86 Olds, a Cutlass Supreme. And so that was the era that I lived in. Still got the mullet, got the earring, looked the part, but working my way back a couple of decades.
Right. Yeah, it's you got a chance to check out our cars. I was in the 20s and 30s there for a little while, and then 60s Cadillacs has always been like 60s era Cadillacs have always been like my 5 or 10 year car. Like I'll get there eventually. Like you were talking about, I'll get there eventually. Mm-hmm. And it took me like 25 years to make that 5 or 10 year jump. But when I had the opportunity, I had to jump on it.
Got to take it.
So we all have one. Any real car guy has one. What's the car that got away? Whether you had an opportunity to buy something, you just couldn't put the money together, or you let one go and you kicked yourself as soon as it left.
Man, I let two of them. I let one go. It was a 71 C10. Had an inline 6, 3 on the tree, manual steering, manual brakes, and my wife now, we were together then, had it, and it was just a little bit too much of a moose to be able to cruise through town. Brakes needed work, right? Yeah. Steering was sloppy. And I let it go to a father and son out of the Twin Cities up in Minnesota. And they came down. They gave me top dollar during COVID for it. And so at the time, I was running my shop. It was a great deal to do. And I think about 10 minutes after it was probably outside of town, I was counting money and crying, not happy tears, right? And my wife still talks about that car or that truck today. So I had the chance also to buy a 68 Cutlass S out of like, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours away, like west of where we live in Iowa, and had the deal ready to rock and roll. The guy kind of wishy-washy on it a little bit, and I don't know, it felt like it'd be one of those where you show up and all of a sudden either the price jumps or anything. And I think a week later, I saw it go by. We were down visiting my wife's family down near there, and I saw it go by on a trailer, and I'm like, oh no, he was ready to sell, and so I think about that one a lot, but really it was letting the 71 C10 go that still hurts. It was like that baby blue or like that robin egg blue.
Oh, okay.
And just a sweet looking truck.
Yeah, you can always bring it back.
Oh yeah. It's on the list of someday.
So we talked a little bit about the rat stock build off before we get to what your plans are for the high class. What did you build for rat stock?
Yeah, so I've still got the rat. It's a 1930 Studebaker Erskine sedan. So 4-door suicide door. That's what I had basically as yard art when I had my shop. I bought it for $200 in a case of Miller Lite, and a buddy of mine has a rollback. Went up and picked it up for me, dropped it off, and about 3 days later, Rat Rod Magazine announced the build off. And I had a good buddy of mine call me. He's like, "Dude, you got to get in. Now is the time. If you're going to pull the trigger on building something, first time, do it, you've already got something. Yeah. And I wasn't really beholden to Studebaker or anything like that, but that's what I ended up rolling with. It was there, so it got used.
Okay. Was it on a chassis, or you built chassis static or ride? What?
Yeah, so it was on the original frame. The body was held together just with duct tape on one side and one little
So pretty much like it was in 30.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's a little bit less wood this time.
Yeah,
but held together with a trim piece on the other side and a ratchet strap. So we ended up using the front 2/3 of the frame. The rear was just so crispy that there was nothing to do. Just did a kick up, square tubing, running trailer leafs, like 24-inch trailer leaf suspension, front and back. Right. Most people think that's crazy, but we've got a Mutual Wheel is the company, just 15, 20 minutes north of where I live. And them guys have spring rates dialed in. They make parts, their bushings, anything and everything for heavy machinery, heavy trucks.
Okay.
And I ran some stuff by them, and they were like, all right, this is what you can try. Let us know how it works. And so that's what I'm running right now.
Okay. What is the do you have the car bought for the high class?
Yeah, so I was going back and forth between a couple different ones. I have a 36 Ford Coupe that is, again, real crispy. Everything I have is rough.
Well, it's Iowa.
Yeah, it's the Midwest, right? It's seen many a winter, basically. There's not a whole lot of wood left in anything pre-war now. Had a 36 Ford Coupe sitting there just on the frame, no engine, no transmission, no front end, basically just shell and a little bit of fenders left, and was kicking around that idea. Wanted to do like a vintage modified stock car from the 50s look.
Okay.
And then I ended up like 2 weeks before the High Class Trash build-off was announced officially. A friend of mine, probably 15, 20 minutes away, posted a 1923 to 1925 T-bucket shell.
Okay.
Missing the passenger door. I mean, and it, again, crispy, right? Everything that I own. It's just like burnt toast, man. It's crispy. So had posted it for, I think, like $75. And I looked at it and I'm like, that would look cool just cut in half, hanging up on the outside of the shop.
Yeah.
And so I bought it. I thought, I'll do a little bit of pinstriping, whatever I want to do on it, paint it, anything like that, cut it up, use it as patch panels. And so the more and more I got to thinking once they announced, and I threw my hat in the ring for the High Class build off. I was like, I think that's going to be cooler to start with the least amount of stuff possible. It's about like 3 sheets of paper.
Yeah, there's not much to a T-bucket.
Yeah, especially the one that I got.
It's weight loss.
Yeah, exactly. Weight reduction. That's faster than the quarter mile.
Yeah, something like that. So what's the plan for it?
So I've got, like, I don't want to call it a rendering, but somebody's built something before out of Japan. Okay. And I want to make sure I get the name right. I think it's the Galaxian.
Okay. And
it's been built. It's super cool, painted metallic, chromed everything, custom build. I want it to look kind of similar to that. So it's going to have hard top, going to have, front windshield, probably the old turtle deck coming out the back. Something that looks similar to that. I'm hoping to be able to do a little bit of body modification on it. Now, I'm a big boy. I'm about 6'3" and 250, somewhere in there. And with boots and shoes on, or boots or shoes on, it doesn't work real well in a narrow car, right? So might have to
20s and 30s cars aren't really built for.
No. I learned that after building the Studebaker. So gonna build something like that. I'd like to stick with like an underslung suspension. Mm-hmm. I think that would be kind of different. I love being unique. Guys have built every kind of T-bucket imaginable. So when you say T-bucket, I'm sure everybody has a picture in their head. Bright yellow, exactly. Exactly. So trying to stay away from something like that's been done. That 90s era, early 2000s era builds where you could order everything out of a catalog. I'm trying to steer clear of that. I like to be so different that it hurts.
So what suspension did you say you're gonna? Is it gonna? You still sticking with the leaf springs or?
Yeah. So I'd like to maybe try getting a little bit longer. I think those 24-inch trailer leafs ride a little tough.
Okay.
Especially when you don't have much weight on it. But an
Yeah.
underslung, keep that frame underneath everything.
Yeah.
So working my way up from frame, axle, arched leaf springs coming up over the top the wrong way. So restack, kind of figure out, play around. I know it's been done before. American Underslung was a 20s car company that's done some, they had done some vehicles before, and I know that they rode awesome for the time. Now you compare that to anything built post
everything, yeah.
Post 1926, they probably ride a little bit rougher, but again, just playing around, trying something new.
That's the one thing that everyone I've talked to, it's all of y'all are bringing something a little different, little flair. Mm-hmm. And there's guys that I've talked to that think that a lot of it is, it's going to be the OGs and the outlaws, of course, with the unlimited, that are going to be bringing some cool stuff. And I think it's going to be the newbies and the blue collar guys that bring, because of, old school hot rod was you just worked with what you had.
Yep.
You didn't have the fancy tools. You didn't have, so making stuff work. And I feel like the ones that I've talked to so far, all of y'all have a little bit different flavor, but you're all are stepping out of the comfort zone of it's a Model A, so it's just this. With my Model A was going to be on hydraulics.
Yep.
Just cause, and just being, because like you said, it's easy, or not easy, but Speedway, you still pull up and order everything for a Tribute T and build a car out of a box.
That's exactly right.
And for relatively not a whole lot of money, if that's what you're looking after, but to see, there's probably not going to be another T.
Yeah, that's
and
if there is, I'm sure it's going to look entirely different.
Yeah, because there's the T bucket there's so many ways that you can do it. You can go with the uncertainty where it looks like the frame's broken half. You can go with Chuck Stanfield with the Tee-Hee, where he kind of reproduced a car from that era and then competed for America's Best, the blower, and,
Yeah, you look back even on some of the 50s, 60s, like Hot Rod Magazine. I've got those, in a case there in the shop, and just flipping back through, seeing what guys are mixing and matching Hemis, Olds rocket engines, all that kind of stuff, right? Where you can pick your variation of a T bucket, of a Model A, of anything and everything, a Chevy sedan, right? Panel deliveries, anything that you want to do. But those OGs and the outlaws, they've probably been through a couple different variations of things that either work, don't work, or it's a numbers game. Once you get through enough, you know what you want for the next one or what you'd like to try.
Yeah.
And the only way I built what I built the first time was just necessity. Right? Necessity is the mother of all invention. So it was whatever I had around or whatever was going to be the cheapest, like we were talking earlier.
Right, yeah, it's you got a budget, and can I afford to do this? No.
Yep.
Do I need it? No. Okay, then it's not getting bought.
Yep.
It's awesome to see, because it kind of goes back to the roots of Hot Rod. It was the guys come back from war, and all right, it doesn't need this. Take it off. Doesn't need fenders, doesn't need a hood, doesn't need side skirt, fill in the blank of, okay, well, now we're going to put the biggest motor we can possibly put in there.
Strip it down, make it fast.
2 ways to go fast, lighter, and nothing sounds as good as a flathead, but also it's the most amount of money you'll spend to go slow.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, I've had a couple Oldsmobiles that...
It just and Zach Parks, I love you, bud. Your motors sound great. H&H, same thing. Motors sound great, look good, awesome. But for the price that you can build a flathead to make any power, you could probably call Jegs and order a crate motor that makes 400.
Yeah, and that's what the hardest part, with the rat stock build off was knowing that there was that $5,000 budget.
Yeah.
And getting married the same year, working on buying a different property, getting a couple things done in just life outside of building hot rods.
Yeah.
My budget was severely lower than that. I mean, I was staring down the barrel of like a couple grand. When I say a couple, I was thinking, all right, if I hit 2,000 on this thing, I'm going to have to start scraping the bottom of the barrel to be able to come up with some pocket change, and buying a couple other parts, and just got super fortunate with it. I mean, it ended up under $3,000 for sure when it was all said and done. And I wish that I would have been able to have that extra 2 to play with, because there'd be some creature.
Well, there was there was some stuff that could have gotten done.
Oh yeah,
and that was. I talked to Simon last night, and a couple of the guys have also mentioned the same thing. It's like I built it for rat stock, and then I brought it home, and then I did this, and I did, then I addressed those things that I didn't have budget for prior.
Yep.
Or on the road trip, discovered, hey, it's probably a good idea to have a floor.
Yeah, that's been one thing that I wanted to do as soon as I got home. Right, we got home. We just gotten married, planning on going on a honeymoon. We put it on the back burner, ended up buying another property, sold my shop. That big long story, not terribly important, but it did affect the timeline of everything. And then we get into Iowa where it's cold. Right, we hit wintertime, and I didn't have a shop anymore. I didn't have anywhere to work on it, so it sat outside, and there wasn't a whole lot to be done. As come springtime, you're just chomping at the bit to be able to jump in and go. And so I still had no glass, half a floor. And I had a full floor leading up to rat stock. 2 nights before we left for the show, I shelled the Power Glide driving by the local Casey's and had nothing but neutrals all the way through except park. And so we drug it back to the shop. That night I started cutting floor out of it as fast as I could. And thankfully I had paid a guy in town that had a 350, turbo 350.
Yeah.
I'd actually paid him like a down payment, a deposit on an engine. And I'm like, hey, we just want to swap for that turbo 350 you got sitting in the garage. And he says, yeah, I'm not using it, whatever. Same length, same everything. And so shoved that back in, bolted it up, right, and tacked as much stuff in as I could.
Yeah.
And so, again, it was just necessity. And the trans tunnel's still open. There's still a couple sections of floor that are open. Drive shaft's entirely enclosed, so I'm not worried about wrapping up clothing or nothing like that. But, I haven't really changed a whole lot on the car. Still got no glass. Still got no roof. Still running my prison bus seats. I even threw the cushions away. I left them out in the rain one time, and I told the wife, I said, nope. I said, I'm not going to be sitting on moldy cushions. And so I run it as raw as it can be. And people either love it or they hate it. Right. And the ones that love it, I think, love the simplicity of it. And that's kind of where I've kind of fell in love with it, I guess, is being able to look at it and go, okay, a high school kid can walk up to this car and say, I can build this.
Yeah. Well, and that was, when I had Jeremiah on and I talked to him, that was the one thing that was my takeaway is y'all are showing people that having 20, 30 grand to build something is great, but it's not necessary, because some of our listeners, they'll reach out and, what do you think of this or what do you think of that? And I always tell them, like, buy something that's running and driving, if possible. Buy something that's running and driving so you're not immediately working on it. Take it to a car show. I mean, that's what the 54 was originally bought for. It wasn't supposed to hang around. It was bought to go to car shows and, hey, you like this? I like that. Cool, let's figure something out.
Dip your toe in the water.
And I had it loaded on a trailer getting ready to go trade it the day before my birthday. And the guy called me. He's like, hey, my wife made plans, man. I didn't know. I'm like, okay, well, I'll unload it. No big deal. Unload the car. He calls me. He's, hey, I got out. I'm like, I unloaded it, man. If you want to come this way. It was Titusville, so like 3.5 hours. I was like, if you want to come this way, car's here, but I'm not putting it back on the trailer. I'll just take it to breakfast for my birthday. And we ended up at a little cruise in and just all shiny stuff. And we turn in and Ashley's in the passenger seat. And like we were saying, you know, Ashley wasn't car before me. Like, I kind of was like the first one that was like, hey, I'm going out in the shop. You can come too.
Yep.
So we like pull in and the photographer spins around and takes a picture of us cruising in. And she's like, did that guy just take a picture? I was like, yeah. She's like, that's cool. And I went, yeah.
It takes that one moment.
And then we're back in and you see like the sea of people. And you're like, oh, okay, they're going to come over here and tell us, like, don't park next to their stuff. Because it's, you know, it's rusty, it's crusty. They have shiny stuff. And it's, oh, is that a 54? Yeah, man. Oh, does it still have a 235? Yep. 3-inch street? Nope. Got a 5-speed on the floor. Oh, man, that's so cool.
Yep.
You know, I took my wife to dinner, our first date in a 54. My grandpa had one that we drove around on the yard, you know, the farm on, and this and that. And you hear the stories. And old cars invoke an emotion, even if you're not into cars. Mm-hmm. You remember that car. There's something that signifies, even like I said, non-car people will remember their high school sweetheart picking them up in a 69 Camaro. Yep. And they don't know nothing about it, but he told them it'd hop a Coke can. So they were, you know, and you know, we put on the hangout. It's everyone welcome all years, and we made it that way because we would do cruise-ins and kids would come up, or younger guys in the hobby would come up and they'd park off because they might have a Honda or a newer car. I'm like, hey, come on, park over here. They can't afford to have 2 cars. Mm-hmm. I'm fortunate. My wife is very understanding. So we have multiple cars out there. I justify it by saying it's her car. But, you know, and the 54 really is hers. It's not, I mean, I'll help her build whatever she wants to build out of it or get rid of it if she wants to. But the days of going and picking up a running and driving X for a couple grand don't exist.
It's few and far between.
Other than in Iowa or anybody that's doing these build-offs, because y'all's marketplace is different.
Oh, I mean, you know, you get...
But you can't. You have to be patient.
Yep. Well, that's the fine line that I always walk to is... And, I mean, I know where it comes from. You know, it comes from a high expectation that you set for yourself. But, yeah. I mean, my 86 Olds was not rust-free in high school. It looked a whole lot nicer then than it does now. You know, I'm not too terribly many years out of high school. But even as a 18-year-old kid, I didn't want to go to a car show with it because in, you know, let's call it 2010, 2012, somewhere in there, you had that era of guys that had just retired and they had nice painted stuff when you could still get a pretty decent paint job for probably more than a couple grand. But I mean, you could get by.
It was around that.
You could get by on a $5,000 paint job and still have something really nice.
Yeah.
And they didn't want some long hair, bad attitude kid, 18, showing up with, you know, rust holes down the side of his Oldsmobile. And so, you know, I never felt like I could show up to any of that stuff. I had to be on the outside looking in. And so this opportunity it was like with Ratstock, you know, that was my foot in the door. I never built anything before that. I'd been around the stuff, right? Yeah. I got bit by the bug, but I still never felt like I was worthy. Like we were talking about earlier, you know, someday I'll have that nice shiny painted, you know, that 72 K20 that's lifted and, you know, hugger orange and just looks great, right? Chrome everything. And then you go to the other extreme where, like I said, high school kid is like, hey man, I want to start tinkering on something. Yeah. You know, after school or on the weekends, whatever, get a couple buddies together. You can afford it. Everybody pitches in.
Well, and also, you know, not to dwell on our show, but that was kind of what we try to duplicate with the show is hanging out in front of a garage with your buddies. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not a participation trophy show. We give out 3 awards. We invite our advertisers to give out awards and car clubs. We want you to do a pick and stuff like that. But it's not about the trophy. Mm-hmm. It's more about getting together, meeting new friends, catching up with old friends, especially for us because, you know, the 14, 15 listeners that we have across the United States, some of them show up. Like last year, or, well, by the time y'all hear this, it'll be 2 years ago, but, 2025 hangout, we had Randy Jackson with the Gasser Garage. His girlfriend's from Oklahoma. He's from Missouri. She picked him up on the way through, and they towed a slingshot dragster on a homemade trailer to Florida. Yep. And I didn't believe he was coming. He told me on the podcast, "Oh, I'll be there." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And I just thought it was a homie that was, "Oh yeah, I'll be there." He ain't gonna come. And it was Wednesday or Thursday. He seen him go live on Instagram, and I opened on my phone and I missed the live, but the caption was "getting gas headed to warmer weather," and I was like, "Nah." And I look and I'm like, "Oh, dude, that's the rig. Like, they're coming." I called Ashley, I had dust in my eyes and shit. Like, they're actually coming because, and it was, Don was actually on premise. So that was cool, and they had a history. Don remembered the dragster. So him and Don are riding around on the golf cart looking at cars at our show. And I'm like, I don't care what anybody else says. This is great.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. You gotta have a couple. I shouldn't say you gotta, but it sure helps to have a couple friends that you can always count on to support the bad habit of collecting parts and building stuff, but the good habit of being around good people.
Well, and also, like we said out there, wiring's not my strong suit. I could wire something up, it'll make it work, but I'm not that guy. If you got a wiring issue, I'm not the guy to call. I can put a harness in if if I know where it's going, but you get one guy that's really good at making a car straight. You get a guy that can weld. He can weld a broken heart. Okay, well, that's your fabricator.
Yep.
Okay, well, you got a guy that's steady hand and patient. All right, that's your painter. Mm-hmm. You got a guy over here, and you get 3 or 4 guys that are decent at stuff. You ain't got to be the best at it. Just be decent. And y'all all have pretty cool cars. I mean, that was in high school. That was the mini truck thing.
Yep.
One guy could fab. One guy knew suspension. One guy knew this. One guy knew that. And we had at that time, me and my dad had built the little small tire S10 back in 2001, and we were still good friends with the guys that raced. So I was always the guy that had way too much motor for the vehicle, and because while you're in there, that's the biggest thing is if you're on a budget, you can't do the while I'm in here.
Yep.
Because that $1,000 rebuild turns into tunnel ram quick.
A few grand real quick. That's why I like that. Like David Freiberger, don't get it right, just get it running.
Yeah.
And that's had to be that kind of had to be the motto, at least. I took it and ran with it, but you get something running and driving. Yeah. The worst thing you can do is take it off the road to make it not run and drive again for a little while. Well,
or you run into the kid I bought this Cadillac from. It was a running and driving car. Transmission went out because the transmission in 60s Cadillac sucks. And I don't know if he rebuilt it or if whatever happened, but they did the air ride on it, and then LS swap come and got the motor sitting in it, and then would stop working on it, and Cadillac King guys would come and help him a little bit and get him kind of back jiving on it, and then something would happen or something doesn't go right, and then I picked it up and I told the kid, I was like, hey, this is, at that time it was going to California. We were doing the road trip for California, and I'm like, it's going to go. There's no, and he's like, I just want to see it done. I'm like, I'll follow because it's going to get done.
Yep.
But you get, like you said, though, you run into where you don't have something going and you get frustrated. You don't want to work on it. You don't want to do that. You don't want to mess with them. And I've had conversations. Me and Ashley have been out in the shop, and she's heard me tell her, like, I don't even know why I said this was going to, and I can't go into full conversation, but I don't even know why I said that I thought I could get it to there.
Yep.
I'm so ignorant. Why did I even say that? This car's got no shot of doing that. And I'll walk away from it. And then it's just like, all right, well, there's no deadline. I'm just going to mess with it. I'm not worried about it. And then all of a sudden shit starts going together and you're like, the fuck? And you're wound up so tight. Yep. Like, when you looked at my watch and as we're recording this, in 15 days, it's got to be running enough to get into a trailer to go to our show.
Yep. And
in 21 days, it's got to be ready to go to Georgia to get paint. That means running and driving, and we're actually running and driving because I might not get it back much before it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah,
it's like
that final push is it's amazing when you're under that deadline.
Yeah.
Even if you put one on yourself or it is a show. Like when you commit to something, I wasn't on the fence about the rat stock build off, but I think I wasn't sure the skill that I was going to need to do, right? Because I've never done it before. And I had a good buddy, Cody from Headstone High Rods up around home, and he's built a handful, right? And he was in my ear. I'd been going to shows with him for a couple of years, and every time I'd go, oh, hey man, you with Cody? Oh, okay, yeah, you're Cody's buddy, right? No. Oh yeah, okay, passenger princess basically.
Yeah.
And we had a mutual friend that I met. We went on a road trip and seen him again. A year or two later at one of the shows. And
where's your car?
And he comes up and he says, "Hey man, you finally got yourself anything? Or are you still just kind of checking it out, dipping your toes in?" And he didn't mean it as a shot, right? But that one stung, and I let that simmer for a long time, just below boil. And I told Cody on the way back, I'm like, that will never happen again. And you fast forward 6, 8, 9 months, and not to beat a dead horse here, but I'm focused on getting married, right? Yeah. I'm writing checks for venues. We're making lists. We're doing this. We're doing that. And I get a phone call in the middle of the day. Oh man, you got to get into this build off and everything. And he was like, "This is your chance." And all I thought about was that comment. You still just checking it out, or what are you up to? And I was like, man, I gotta do it, right? It might not be pretty, and I remember it got down to probably 15, 14 days, and I'm still shitting bricks because I didn't know how to put it all together at the very end, right? I knew how to do one step at a time, but to be able to actually button it all up and run and drive. And to feel like you can go over 45 mile an hour was a little touchy there for a minute. And when I talked to Cody, he was like, "Hey man," he goes, "you just got to do something." He goes, "You have to do everything in your power to get it there."
Yeah.
And so,
and the first victory of that is getting it to the first stop. Well, second victory is making that cruise.
I had about 100 miles on it when that transmission went out, and it was the worst phone call I've ever had to make. And I've never called my old man for anything because I was told not to. You ever get in a tight spot, right? If there's red and blue lights, don't bother calling. You show up when you get bailed out on Monday, but don't call me over the weekend. And I called him. I said, "I need you to bring a tow strap, Dad." I said, you got to come tow me back to the shop. He was like, "All right, I'll be there." Right? And towed it back. And I remember him standing there just kind of staring at my car. And I'm standing there staring, and I'm thinking, man, this sucks. I got a ton of work left to do. Right, because I'm not going to miss the build or the build off.
Yeah,
I'm not going to miss that. And I didn't even occur to me. It wasn't, oh shit, I'm throwing in the towel. It was how do I get there?
I guess I'm not sleeping for the next.
And we show up, to the show, and it makes the drive to Northern Tool and comes back great, 60, 65 mile an hour the whole time, and didn't hiccup, didn't do anything. And we pull back in, and my dad showed up for the show, and cool. And he comes in, he goes, "I'm not going to lie, I didn't think you'd get that done." I'm like, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding me?" And so, the whole time, it's just, once you get over that hump once, right, you feel like you're able to do it again, and then you don't want to build the same thing twice. I mean, God bless the guys that do, because some of them make a pretty good living out of it.
Oh, yeah. And you also get into a genre, and sometimes it works.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Sumner with Simple C10 has made a very good following, a very good living based on 60 to 66 now, all the way up into square body, but C10s. But I know guys, I've talked to some of them, and it's like, oh, you build really good, cool Model A's, or you build really cool 32 coupes. And it's like, no, dude, I build everything. Yeah. But that one car, oh, that's all you build. And it's like, no, I can build anything. Yep. That's just the car I'm known for. Yep. And sometimes it's hard to get out of that, in shop wise, because you want to put your best foot forward. So you build an awesome product, whether you build it for somebody or you build it for yourself. And then what you have attracts, like we were talking about. People call, hey, do you want this? Or, hey, you know anybody looking for this? Or, hey, you know anybody that's got this? Yep. Or whether it's looking for a part. And I mean, the first person that it worked on was us. I said on a podcast I needed a bolt for Ashley's front end. And Randy Jackson called me up. He's like, I don't use that garbage. I got one behind the shop. I'll see if it's got a bolt in it. Because Napa wanted like $200 for a nut. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not paying it. So I ugga-dugga it and paint penned it. And I would just, every time I stopped, I'd get under there and make sure the line was still straight. And I was driving the car. So it wasn't like I was putting her at danger. But it would have got addressed. But you run into getting in a groove. And it's real easy. And a lot of... unfortunately, or fortunately for the builder side, pretty much the chassis that you build for a Model A can also work for a 32, can also work for a Chevrolet. They're very similar, especially if you stick with the same suspension. Yep.
Which, I mean, that's a testament to like the creativity and the skill set of your OGs and your outlaws. Because they can take something that could be cookie cutter, right? Oh, yeah. And maybe they have before, maybe that's what they started with, and now they're building stuff that's so far out of the box that, it catches everybody, not just builders, not just car guys and gals. I mean, it catches the general public. Like you look at what Josh Joyce is doing.
I was just,
and that train is nasty, right?
The train is nasty. His suspension is nasty. The 4-link and the cantilever, or the 2-link and the cantilever that he makes for that. I said in the middle of doing my Model A, like if I ever did another one, I would do his suspension or style it off of what he does because it makes sense. I didn't. And looking back, if I was to do it again and I was going to put it on air rod, that's the system it would go on because he's got to figure it out.
Yep. That arena too of guys that are building top notch or, on the climb up to being known basically nationwide, right? The good folks, like the good guys and gals, they get amplified, right? Oh, yeah. It's a tighter knit community than most people think from the outside looking in. I mean, you're about one phone call or one Facebook message away from touching base with anybody in the industry, which is, to me, is crazy. That's a community I was never part of before. Yeah. Right. And again, just being kind of a tag along. And so it was cool to see those relationships get built and everything. And now to be a part of it is, it's kind of odd to sometimes, catch yourself in the moment and be like, holy smokes. Like, I'm talking to this guy. He's just down to earth, right? Super cool dude. Do anything for you. Hey man, you ever need something, give me a call.
Just so you know, you'll never get used to it.
Oh, I'm not.
I'm telling you, you will never. Because when we started this, there was a podcast that helped us get started, and he told me, he's like, man, the first time you're somewhere and somebody calls you by your name and it's not a local show, you're gonna flip. And I went, that ain't gonna happen. I was in Salt Lake City for that road trip, and the dude was like, hey man, have a good road trip. I was by myself. I ain't talked to nobody.
Yeah, all right, this is a little weird.
And I'm on a connecting flight in Salt Lake City. And I'm like, what? He goes, "You're Matt, right?" I'm like,
Depends on who's asking.
he's like, "You and Brian are going on a road trip, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." I listened to both of y'all and I went, "In Salt Lake City?" Like, I'm just a Florida boy that talks to myself.
Yep.
Like, you know, or people reach out and like give you, like, check out my YouTube channel, check out this. And it's like, dude, I've been following you for 5 years.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell me who you are. I know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And, or the imposter syndrome. I get it all the time. Like, why does somebody want to talk to me?
Yeah.
You know, and people reach out and it's like, I'm in a good, for instance, and I told Simon this yesterday. I've been trying to reach out to him for probably a year, and it would just be like, man, why does he want to talk to me?
Oh shit!
And
man,
then he reached out to me, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'd love to talk to you. Or just people that, because you see stuff. You know, Travis, his C10s are badass. If I build a C10. That would be the way that I would build a C10. He builds C10s the way that I would do it. Why you want to talk to me? And it's weird.
Yep.
But it's awesome because, like you said, I can call somebody up and anywhere I go, I can call somebody and they might not be able to help me, but they know somebody.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
You know.
I was, I've been to the small town stuff, right? We're from a town like 2,000 people. We're going to be moving to a town with like less than 100, and we're counting the stray dogs and cats.
Hey.
And, you go to some of these other small town shows, and there's some big name people that are known either throughout the Midwest or even nationwide, right? Like Stoner Speed Shop out of Hudson, Iowa. And Blake's a great dude and everything, and because I know him now, right? And I got to know him, but mutual friend of mine was like, "Hey man, let's cruise over." It was, bring your rat rod over. And we roll in and they do bagged 40s, 50s, 60s stuff with Corvette engines. And these are very, very, very nice, classy rides. These are not rat rods at all. And he says, "Hey, let's go see what Blake's up to." And we pop in and he's, holding the mixed drink, and he looks at me and goes, "Who the hell are you?" There probably been a few drinks had before that. And I said, "Oh, I'm from here." He said, were you driving that? You driving that rusty pile out there?" And at first I didn't realize that he's joking all the time. Yeah. And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That thing's pretty effing cool." He's like, "What do you want to drink?" And I'm like, "What, what world did I just step into?" And so stood there and talked to him for like an hour. Man, super humble, down to earth, talking about people that we either knew in common or just, places that we've been and everything. And he had no ego whatsoever, and probably has every right to, out there in the outside world, right, where you want to talk about status and everything, and just great dudes that love to be around this stuff.
That's like Alex Gambino, dude's the godfather of 54 or 49 to 54 rear suspension in California. Like, has an entourage. You really can't get within probably 10 foot of him if he's at a car event. And sat and talked to me for 20 minutes just because I was like, "Hey, man, cool." He's the only one that goes to the cruise-in for the Santa Maria cruise-in. He's the only one that parks in the parking lot and doesn't go to the show because his car doesn't fit the rules.
Really?
He drives a 66 Cadillac, and he builds 49 to 54 Chevrolets and Cadillacs and Lincolns, but that's his main thing. And there's probably 50 of his cars there, but he likes cruising the Cadillac.
Yep.
So this is what I'm bringing.
Yeah, that's the world that I'm in now, being around the rat rods, and especially, like I said, around just great people. Oh yeah. You get to have something that reflects you, what you like, what you've done, what you want to do. It's your whole personality. I shouldn't say your whole personality, but it's how you're able to express what you want other people to see of you, right? And like you were talking about trying to get a hold of Simon, nothing really rattles my cage, right? There's not a lot that can get me, on uneven footing. And the first time talking to Simon, I was like, man, because he's just right away, he's like, "Hey man, nice to meet you. How are you?" And I'm like, okay, is this real? right? And talked to every single person. Like, hey, I was talking to Simon. He's got the stroke box, right? The power stroke in that shoebox Ford. And every single person, the first thing they said, it wasn't about his car. It wasn't about his skills. He's like, every single person said, great dude.
Yeah.
Great dude. You got any questions, ask the guy.
And pretty much, and that's what we've realized in, you go to shows and yes, you see, Simon, YouTube, Corey Wheat. You see these guys on YouTube. You see them big, they're bigger names, and you don't know what's real and what's not. And I've had it. Like, people will be like, are you really that person? I'm like, I am exactly the person that nerds out talking to people. Like, that's me. Like, I will stand and talk to somebody. I don't even care if your car is like my cup of tea. If you dig it, I will stand there and bullshit about your car for hours.
Yep.
And it's not good what I do for a living because I spend a lot of time in the villages, which is a very large retirement community. And with that comes a lot of badass rides that they brought down that don't move. So, and a lot of them look at me funny because it'll be like, what you got on that car cover? And they're like, you don't know nothing about that. And I'm like, that's my wife's car. Yeah. Like, he's like, oh, okay. And then you kind of got to get in because they don't expect. There's a reason it says younger generation, trying to keep it alive.
Yep.
Because it's not. You don't normally see younger cats doing what they did or defending it. And the trends of back, we're all doing the same stuff. Traditional hot riders, channel cars, mini truckers, body drop them. They swap small block Chevrolets. We swap LSs. Now, I do agree that if it ain't got no hood on it, it should have a regular conventional headed motor in it. But if it's got a hood on it, go ahead and put an LS or a Coyote, whatever you want to put in it. I get it. Just because they're ugly motors. And I have one. It's in my Cadillac. And
yeah, that's one of those can of worms where I had an old boy that I learned from when I was working at the Ford and Chevy dealership. Yeah, Ford and Chevy, same one. That tells you small town, right?
Yeah.
Ford and Chevy dealership. We had about 9 trucks on the lot. I think 3 of them were employees. And he was past retirement age then and was still working. And didn't have a lot of time for, a young guy I wasn't ASC certified, still not, never will be, right? I just grew up working on stuff, right? Working on old tractors, built some semis coming out of high school at Freightliner, just had done a little bit of everything, but not everything, right? Not to a high standard or a high level yet. And got to working on a couple things with him, a couple older, farm trucks, stuff like that in the dealership. The old boys would bring their stuff in, and I knew him like the back of my hand because that's what I grew up with. And so actually got to be pretty good friends with him, and still, would call him even years later. And he was standing in my shop when I was in the middle of the rat stock build off. And he goes, what are you going to put in it for an engine? And I said, I don't know. I kind of want like traditional style. I want it from a distance to look like a traditional build.
Yeah.
Like East Coast style kind of somewhere in there. And I said, I think I want to go with an inline 6. And he's like, okay, 300 Ford or 250 Chevy. And I said, probably a 250 just because I'd had the 71 years before.
Right.
And he said, he's like, I really don't care what you put in it. And I knew what he meant. It wasn't, I wasn't asking for his permission, but I was kind of seeking some input without really saying it. And Steve goes, anything pre-war? He says, you bastardize. I don't care what you put in it. Anything. Everything. He says, you going to leave the hood off? I don't care what it came out of.
Yeah.
He goes, you get post-war? He says, you should probably keep, along the same make unless you're going to go with an era correct. But he grew up like that.
Well, small block Chevrolet goes in everything.
See, yeah. Oh, it fits. It fits. He was, It's like the 392, like the Hemis.
Yeah.
Right? That's what everybody was swapping back in his day. And he was racing in the early to mid-70s Buick Olds Pontiacs, station wagons. That was his big thing. Flat top wagons, right? And anything before that. And so he was very big on like brand specific post-war. And I've always kind of kept an idea of that. But like you'd said, you can do whatever you want.
And brand used to matter
Used to.
way more than it does now.
Yep.
Because I grew up, my dog's name is Chevrolet.
Yeah.
We were a Chevy family.
Mm-hmm.
I now have one Chevrolet technically two, but there's a Ram out there. There's Cadillac. There was a Ford that was going to have a small block in it. There was a small block Chevrolet. There was. Now it's not as big of. If you were a Ford guy, if you grew up in a Ford family, you better not bring a Chevrolet.
Yeah. There was not a lot of crossover. That's, to me, that's what's so, I don't know if beautiful is the right word, but it leaves the options open for the rat rod world.
Yeah.
Because, okay, there's a part of me that deep down it's killing me that I've got a 47 Ford tractor, a 36 Ford coupe, and now a 23 to 25 T-bucket. But above that, it's the cool factor, right? And I can make it all my own. And only certain people are going to be able to look at that going down the road and know exactly what it is. And even fewer of those are going to care, right? To me, it's just you're keeping that stuff alive.
Yeah.
And all that deserves to be kept alive. That era, like you talked about, that connection with people. Mm-hmm. I've had people at the gas station stop me and say, "What is that chop top?" Well, actually, it's not a chop top. Studebaker was shorter than a Model A. The Erskine was. And there's a guy that's about 20 minutes south of where we live that's got, and I should know whether it's a 27 or 28. I can't remember now, but it's the more square Studebaker Erskine 4-door. He actually won Studebaker Nationals out in South Bend, Indiana this past spring with it.
Okay.
Very beautifully restored car.
Yeah.
Blue and black, got the Studebaker luggage rack off the back. I think it's got a small block Chevy in it, but just an absolutely gorgeous car. And so we end up at a lot of the small town shows together. And I shouldn't say this because I'm not 100% sure, but I've got a mutual friend that was trying to talk to him when I was building mine. And I was asking for measurements because the body wasn't connected anymore. There was no A pillar, there was no B pillar, no C pillar. I mean, it was laying there. It was completely laying there. And he had said, "Hey, I know a young guy building another Erskine." And the guy's like, "Really? Tell me about it." He said, "Hey, he's going to build a rat rod." He didn't seem too terribly interested at the time, right? I'm underselling it a little bit, but I got to talk to him and his wife at a couple of different shows. Very nice Shiner shows where I'm from, right? $100,000 restoration cars that are at some of these shows. And so giving him just a little bit of a hard time. Hey, man, anybody wants to know what one without paint looks like, send them down my way. And if they can find paint on my car, I'll show them what a real painted Studebaker looks like, right? We're friends on Facebook now. He sends me messages. "Hey, man, I was just coming through your town, taking a picture at the local, the vintage gas station in your town and everything." And I mean, just kind of flips the script, right? Once you know that somebody has that appreciation for saving that type of history, it's a completely different ballgame.
And also, I ran into this. I picked up a 32 Ford pickup truck from a guy, and he has an absolute beautiful Model A coupe. I love his car. And, we're loading it up. He's like, "What's the plan?" I said, "It's going to be a rat rod." And he's like, "Oh, man." And he's a traditional guy. I get it. He also has one of, if not the closest to, he has a Roadster that's absolutely beautiful. Trog build. But his coupe is a small block Chevrolet, whatever. So, and he's like, "Oh, man." And I could tell he was mad, but I bought it. So, he can't really tell me what to do with it. But and he knew that. He wasn't trying to tell me what to do, but he was just like,
Not my cup of tea.
Yeah. And, he has on the back, it's unpainted. It's not a rat rod. That's...
Got you.
Rat rod is a bad word. So
I've seen a few forum posts that haven't been around for 10 or 15 years that, the RR word. Yeah.
So, and, then I got it home and I was talking and I needed some backing plates and more traditional hot rod stuff. So I called him. Hey, man, you got backing plates? Yeah, I got that. And I'm looking for brakes because it had chrome drums on it. I was like, hey, I'm looking for brakes for that. Oh, yeah, this. And he's like, so rat rod? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he goes, everything you've asked me, none of that's rat rod. And I go, well, it's not going to have any paint on it. It's going to be bare metal. He goes, that's not a rat rod. And I go, and he goes, it's not. And I'm like, it is, but it's not. It's a traditional hot rod.
Yep.
It's just an unfinished traditional hot rod.
Yep.
Back when the rat rod term was coined, that's what a rat rod was an unfinished, traditional-ish hot rod. Now it has turned into, there's an offspring of flea market supplies and let me weld it wrong to make it look worse and this and that. And that's what he was meaning. Mm-hmm. But because of the stigma, it's not a rat rod. Well, there's
a gray area between it. I know what you're talking about. I mean,
and it's hard because, and then there's a difference. There's so many different like micro classes.
Yep.
And it's like, no, dude, like it's
there's that gray area, and I mean I'll never. I shouldn't say never because I've been guilty of it, but I have to remind myself, what somebody wants it to look like, and then the execution of it. Sometimes you miss the mark, and other times guys love that. And there's a couple of good friends of mine would call them like junk rods, like you said, like flea market stuff. And if that's what you're into and you want that, I consider it kind of hokey. But again, I mean, if you're taking it to a show for it specifically to look like Beverly Hillbilly style, and that's what you want, by all means, man, that's cool.
Ashley loves them. I'm not, like I said, I'm in the same boat as you. Ashley loves them because she likes walking around looking for Easter eggs.
Yep. That's cool.
Stuff.
Yep. I didn't notice that.
Handle.
Yep.
10 millimeter wrench on the gas pedal. That stuff that's fine. That's cool. Whatever. Not me.
It's not my cup of tea. But on the
but again, it's your car. Do
exactly. And the flip side of that too is, like shiners, right? And I never used that phrase before. I just considered a hot rod something that was painted, or it was a project car if it wasn't painted, right? Before I really got into stuff super deep. And, Cody and I were caravanning to a show. He was in his truck and I was, in my Studebaker, and we were pulling onto the interstate heading to a very, very uppity, nice show 10, 15 minutes away, and had a guy swing out in front through the intersection like a 55, 56 Chevy. Really nice, beautiful two-tone car. Red and that kind of cream white. And, I kind of waved like, no biggie, I'll let you go. And he looked right at me and didn't wave. And so I'm like, all right. And the whole time, 65, 70 mile an hour. And I'm cooking, right? And I'm not letting this guy out of my sight because it's like, your shiner's not going to outrun my rat rod,
right.
And we get to the show and pull in and park, and we get out, and Cody looks at me and he goes, I know what you were doing. I said, what? He goes, you weren't about to let that guy walk away from you going down the interstate. I said, no, I was just proving a point. And got to talk to the guy at the show. Great dude.
Yeah.
Right? But it was still one of those things where you kind of hold that in the back of your mind, because I have been in shows before where people are like, man, that thing's a POS. Right?
It is, but it's mine.
And the very first show I ever got an award, and awards are cool. It makes you feel good to know that somebody else recognizes your work.
Yep.
That's not why I built it, but it's one of those tokens where it's like, cool, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right? You appreciate me coming to your show. I appreciate being here. And I was sitting on the windshield post, and I'm just sitting there, and they call my name. I crawl down my car. I step on the step, have to step on the engine, step on the frame, step off, go up, get it, crawl back up there. toss my trophy and hope it doesn't fall out the missing piece of the floor, and the guy sitting next to me, I kind of overheard him talking, and yeah, it must be nice until you're headed home. It doesn't have any heat. And I turned and looked, and I said, well, actually, it does pretty warm. I said, the cowl vent still works. And I reached down with my foot and opened the cowl vent while I'm still sitting on top of it. Oh, well, you must have the exhaust piped in. I said, well, no. I said, but it's not too bad. So you just got to man up. Yeah. And at this, I don't try to get into it with anybody, but every now and then you got to put somebody kind of a little bit back on their heels. And it's like, I'm not knocking your 71 Monte Carlo. It's that butternut yellow. Not my style of car, but you know what? I still think I'm glad you brought it. I think it's cool because some kid
I'll go check it out. Yeah.
Some kid might see that car and say, I want one just like that.
Yeah.
That might be the little kid at the car show that says, that's my favorite car.
Yeah. And that's, cool. and that's what we're all there for.
Yeah. 100%.
I forget who it was, but we had a listener and, I do remember it was C-Max and, he was like, I'm just trying to make 8-year-old me and 80-year-old me proud. And I went, huh? And he goes, I'm building what 8-year-old me wanted, and 80-year-old me is proud that I did it. He's, and they went on, he's building an F-Max, an F-250 or F-350 with a Duramax.
Okay.
And he didn't get it done. My buddy went up and was his co-driver. So they didn't get the F-Max done. So they brought C-Max, which is a Cummins.
Okay.
No, it's a C10, C30 with the Duramax in it.
Okay.
And it's a farm truck. Flatbed, dual rear wheels.
Got you.
It is not race car. But they brought it. It ran like forever, and they were there for the cruise. People broke. Hey, I got a welder. I'll weld your wheelie bars back together. I'll do this and do that. And they had showed up we have a little place down there not too far from here. Leadfoot City was one of the checkpoints. We had went up there, and his wife and two sons were, my buddy's wife and sons were there, and they're getting ready to leave, and got the camper on the back, and little one, do a burnout.
Yeah.
So he had spent, they had probably been there an hour and a half, 2 hours, and he spent pretty much that whole time organizing this little toolbox, and they did not get it strapped where it needed to be. So as soon as it started doing a burnout, the back end started kicking because it's a dual rear wheel. Yep. And it threw this box, and it was dark, so the lights and all you seen was just glitter. Of chrome sockets everywhere.
That 10 mil is gone.
And he gets out, and he's like, ah. And I'm like, he goes, did you get that on video? And I went, yeah. He goes, okay, cool. And it was fine. It was, as long as there was video, as long as there's something, and I sent him the video, and it shows that lighten up, man. You're there.
Yep.
To have a good time. You're there. And there's also, I don't get mad if we drive Ashley's car, and if we drive the Cadillac to a gas station and somebody ever called it something different, I'm not going to get mad. They're not in it.
No.
Somebody goes, oh, it's her car gets called a rat rod all the time. Oh, nice rat rod. Well, no, it's just a rusty patina car.
Yep.
I haven't done body work on it. I haven't filled the holes yet. Like, it's not a rat rod. That car is definitely not a rat rod. It's patinaed. It's stock.
It's a driver. Yeah, it's a good looking car. I noticed it the first thing when I pulled up.
And it currently has a 235 with an S10 5-speed, S10 rear end, and I've lifted it 3 inches to get it to that height because when we bought it, we couldn't ride in it together.
Yep.
We only one person could ride in it at a time because it would drag, and it still drags because the way they ran the exhaust. But I had plans to do the small block, so I didn't do exhaust on it.
Yep.
And so now it'll get a small block and it'll get exhaust on it. They ran the exhaust under the cross members.
Oh.
So everything's hanging extra low.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that's what it's all about though, is being able to in whatever capacity you can, just to have fun doing it, because it's not going to look perfect. I always had in my mind, again, like having to be worthy of something, or having to have a car or build a car that was worthy of other people. And I, honestly, and it sounds bad to say, but I used to be fueled by like spite, right? When somebody would say that you can't, and it still lights a fire under me, but I don't live like that anymore. Yeah. And it took a long time to get there, though. I mean, a part of that came from kind of, grinding with the business and everything too. But really built that kind of as a, not really in your face, but a challenge to myself, where everybody else has said, there's no way, or you can't do it, right? Kind of that small town mentality where everybody's going to sit back and just watch. And if you get something done, oh yeah, man, you're always great with cars and everything. And if you fall flat on your face, well, yeah, he thinks he's a big time or anything like that, right? So it was kind of hard originally, building the car and then getting past that and going, okay, now just enjoy it. Let somebody else have the fun with it too. Like little kids want to crawl in and out of it. And when I show up places, like to shows or to cruise-ins or just anywhere like that, I open the suicide doors, and anybody that walks by that wants to look in is like, get in. You ever sat in a prison bus seat? And I've had guys before that have been like, brother, I'm not getting back in a prison bus. I'm not sitting on them seats. I've been there before. But, you get little kids crawling in and out of it and stuff. And just like, even all the way up to the oldest generation, being at a couple small town shows, sitting in front of a courthouse, and a 70-some-year-old gal says, do you mind if I sit in that? Absolutely. You get in. Keys in it if you want to start it. You do whatever it is that you want to do to get a smile. Like, that's what feels good now, rather than trying to have that little bit of edge or that spite. It's, to me, if you want to use that as fuel, use it as fuel, but afterwards you got to be able to enjoy it.
And you also have to understand that a project built on spite is not ever good.
No, it ages you.
And it does. And, you can do a lot of awesome stuff with any vehicle. But your personality, anytime, and it took me a little while to get used to this side of it, is even though I am who I am, when I'm talking on here or at a show or whatever, you're always on.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad of a day you're having. If you're in your classic car and somebody walks up to you and goes, hey, nice car, you're on.
Yup.
You owe it to them, whether you think you do or not, to say, hey, man, I appreciate it. Because if you're a dick, we're all dicks.
That's exactly right.
And maybe that kid says nice car and you kind of just blow him off because you're not having the best of day. And he's like, well, why do I want to be associated with that guy? Or why do I want to build something? Or why, maybe I'm wrong. Well, you're not. Build something, man. And especially with what y'all are doing, showing it. Because, like I said, the Cadillac was a 5-10 year car. Like, I'll get there eventually. Mm-hmm. And I told Ashley when we were bringing home on a trailer that was 4 foot too short to bring it home on. And I told her, I said, I don't know what's next. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is it. Like, this is what I've been, like, every car that I've had so far, like, led up to a 60s Cadillac. Like, that was it. Other than, like, a 60. That's the car. Mm-hmm. I said, other than that, like, I don't really know where I'm going. And it was a joke. I'm not done with cars, but it was like,
where do I go now?
Where's the next?
Yep.
Like, okay, I never thought I'd have a shiny car. I'm doing a shiny car.
Yep.
And it's like invitations to places and people talking to me that you'd never think, you go somewhere and, a good, for instance, the Bad Apple sitting over there. We had went to Turkey Rod Run, the Bad Apple Bash, and I had walked my back to death. So I'm like, I don't care how much it costs. We're registering your car. You're not going to win nothing. And we're sitting there, and Hannah and Corey and Saw Customs, Steve and Jackie are standing there. We're all bullshitting. A couple of Model A Mafia guys were there, and they were going to win something because they have cool ass shit. And they get called, and Hannah Wheat with the welding rig. So we're like, hey, you want something? She's like, are you sure they didn't say Corey? I'm like, no, they said you. Your welding rig, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So she goes up. Well, Ashley's walking up with her, and I'm 99% sure I heard Ashley boys. And I'm like, nah, that ain't what I heard. 54 Chevy. And I'm like, well, there's more than one 54 here. Like, orange patina. And I'm like, nope, that's what I wrote. And I was like, well, you want something too. So now they're both up there arguing with the guy holding the clipboard that neither one of them won. And the guy's like, that's you, right? Yeah, that's you? Yeah, then this is your trophy. Because we don't go for the trophies.
Yeah, it's a complete perspective change too when you think about it as like the bigger picture. Like what you were talking about, you're the ambassador really for somebody else to either get in or somebody else to stay away. And it's one little moment like that, right? And that's why I got to hand it to Jeremiah and everybody else that's involved with the High Class Trash Invitational. That being an invitational, you get to weed out the ones, hopefully. Now, you can't control how people are, but when you look at them as a collective of what they've done or how they act, that's freaking awesome because you limit the bad exposure, right? And that's... It would. I gotta be honest. It would only taken one or two of those instances when I first thought about getting into the build. Mm-hmm. That somebody probably could have absolutely just crushed my dreams like a tin can.
Yeah.
Right.
What are you doing?
Exactly. Like,
why are you doing that?
Yeah. There ain't no way. I know you're not capable of it. Right. So if somebody would have said that, that probably would have been one of those moments that rattled my cage. Right. But instead, I had Cody. That's like, if you say you're gonna get it done, you have to do everything to get it done. And I'll be here, help when I can. Yeah. And I probably called the guy more times. His wife probably thought I was a crazy ex-girlfriend the way I was calling him all the time with questions, and just advice and everything else, or talking about what I wanted to do. But again, that's one of those good apples. Mm-hmm. That's one of those that's there, and I had great interactions. I mean, the only way I ever met that guy, I didn't know how to weld. I left high school passing every single metalworking class, every single woodworking class. I wanted to be a shop teacher. I didn't know how to weld. God bless my high school shop teacher. Could not weld to save his life, and we had the old school stick welders where, as soon as you flip the switch, the lights dim throughout half the school. And I bought a little Hobart welder from a gal up the street that had like a craft shop. She was, selling the business and everything. I bought it, had the cart, had the welder, had the wire, helmet, just whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I called Cody and I was like, hey man, I know you built some cool shit. I actually used to hang out with his younger brother like back in high school. And so I didn't really know him. I was like, hey man, stop out sometime. And he was building a rat rod for a build off. Right. Yeah. And I think that one was like out of Wisconsin. He ended up winning. And so he's like, all right, I got this Dakota frame laying on the floor. Here's the welder. Here's how it works. Yada, yada. This is what you do. He's like, you see that crack in the frame? Sure. He's like, I already beveled it out. You're going to weld it. And I'm thinking, no. Like you don't want me touching this. Like looking at it's probably going to, cost you money. And, from there, I mean, just got bit by the bug, right? But had a good interaction at first. Cause if he would have came out of that shop and been like, you're this or you're that, or you don't know what you're doing, and just crush somebody. Oh, yeah. Everybody has that opportunity, right? Where you can either be the one that builds somebody up or crushes them. And I feel like, especially being, picked for the invitational, yeah, you got to use the platform for good. It's got to be.
And it is. I was glad to see the list of people because there's known people, mm-hmm. and then there's people that. We had a father and son team on last night that this is kind of their first swing at it, and it's going to be the 16-year-old's first ride. Yep. And I'm like, and they're biting a air ride fat fender Chevrolet. Like I was like, okay, like That's a bucket list build for me.
If there would have been somebody like that around when I was 16, you just think about when you started and if it could have been, 10 years earlier, where you could be at now.
I was very fortunate in my dad. I grew up, my mom and dad were in the carnival business for the first 5 years of my life. And then my dad was that mechanical guy. So I kind of got it real early, and it was, it was 1999, 2000, around that time. So I'd have been 10. We started a little 82 S10 with a small block, small tire. Well, at that time it was just what everybody ran was 10.5s.
Yep.
It wasn't, you didn't really have big tire cars other than like real racers. And, I was given the, hey, this is how you sandblast. This is how you do this. This is what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I had that going in, and then moving forward of, okay, I bought my first truck. We split the cost on a 82 S10 that was lowered the incorrect way. Heat the springs up and bounce on the bumper until it touches the ground and go, yep, that's good. And we still, every time we go, there's a bridge just south of my mom and dad's house. And every time we go over the bridge, doesn't matter what we're in, me and him will both start going. Because it literally, when you hit the bridge, you had to stop to get it to stop bouncing. Mm-hmm. And then you could go again, because it was garbage. And it was awesome. I loved it. And he recently found pictures of that truck, and it's like, and then after that, my dad's been the trader guy. So I traded that for a Ranger, and then the Ranger, he found a C10, and he was looking for a C10, so he bought it, and then we were driving, and he's like, you want to drive it? I'm like, yeah. You like it? I'm like, yeah. Be a good truck for you. And he's like, no, it's yours. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, cool. And right around graduation time, they're like, hey, do you want a car or do you want a motor? And I'm like, motor.
Yeah.
So we did a motor, and, a crate motor, but obviously being at a race shop, you can't just take the fully complete crate motor and drop it in. You got to do cams and roller rockers, and while the motor's out, you might as well shave the firewall, because I couldn't afford AC. It was a factory AC truck. I deleted that because I couldn't afford to put AC back in it. So, and it's better to be cool look cool than be cool.
Yep.
So that had to go. And, I've always had that. My dad's always been in my corner with that. But then there for a little while, the cars kind of went away, and we got into bikes. And at that point, my dad was still always my best friend. He always will be. But we had kind of separated, and I kind of was doing my own thing. And coming back now, I got back into hot rods, and then they got back in. They're both retired. Obviously completely two different missions.
Yep.
They're looking for a 30, 45 minute round trip, ice cream cruiser. They found a 65 Fairlane that is absolutely gorgeous. Vintage air, about as stock as it could get. Mm-hmm. Stupid low miles. At the time I was building a Model A that was the complete opposite of that.
Yep.
I was going to make it road trip, but it wasn't supposed to.
Yep.
And it's two different missions, and that's another thing you got to pay attention to. When people are building stuff, you build to the mission. Mm-hmm. For instance, when I picked the Cadillac up, I got a good buddy, has one of the really beautiful carryall that he built for his wife, and he's got a 50 Chevy custom. I think it's a 50, 51, 50, anyway, custom. And he was from out in California, and he's here now. And he's like, what's the plan, man? I said, well, bag 20s, biggest white walls I can fit on a 20, but 20s. And he's like, aren't you driving this to California? I said, yeah. He goes, you might want to rethink that. And I go, what do you mean? I said, oh. And I thought he was saying don't put 20s on it. He was saying don't put 20s on it to road trip. He's like, you need sidewall, man. He's like, leave the 15s on it where you got sidewall, where the tires don't heat up. He goes, because it's going to suck to take that 20 off on the side of the road. And I took the 15 off to adjust a bag, routing in the shop. I tried to take a tire off, and I went, you know what? 15s look good on the bench. Because it's just there's not a lot of room, and especially when you bag them, it limits the up travel.
Yep.
So even with the skirt off, there's still not a whole lot of room to get tire off. And I called up my buddy. He's a 62. He's had like 50 62s of all different varieties. And I'm like, man, how you get the tire off? Like, there's got to be an easier way. Like, because I deflated the tire. Like, I took all the air out of it and put it back on, deflated, and then aired it up on the car. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And he was like, oh, yeah, you got to take the arm off. He's like, you got to separate the arm from the axle and then let the axle drop. And I was like,
yeah, 15 sound good.
I'm like, that's ignorant. And he was like, it is. And it's still, I mean, it's 29. He goes, it is what it is. That's part of bagging them. They're going to be that low. And I was like, okay, well, sometimes to look good, you got to deal with your bullshit. And so what is a show or event that you try to make every year?
Oh, I mean, for sure, Rat Stock. Right. Outside of that, there's Torque Fest in Dubuque. So it's right on the Iowa-Illinois border over there. Vintage Torque Fest every year. It's actually the very first show I started going to with Cody.
Okay.
And so we go to that one. There's a couple that I'd like to go to that are a little bit further. Obviously some Midwest ones. Now I'd love to make the rod run down, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, all the way down through there. There's some of those shows that are on the bucket list, but Rat Stock is one that is non-negotiable. We actually moved the date of our wedding when we found out when that was going to be. Like when the build off came out, we were still kicking around a couple dates. And crossed that one right off. So I was in for a penny in for a pound at that point for both. You
better get it in there. Yeah, you better get it.
Yeah, exactly.
That was we didn't deal with. We didn't do the ceremony and all that big stuff. We just got married on a piece of property that we bought, and then ended up selling the property and buying this. But because they wouldn't let us build what we wanted to build.
Yep.
They fought us tooth and nail. Couldn't live in a metal building. Then the garage was too big, and I'm like, no such thing.
It's only too big when it's empty.
Well, they were right. I mean, the house was 900 square foot, and the shop was like 3,600.
Sounds like the perfect kind of house.
I'm like, eh. But they wanted separate. They wanted 51%. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not building a shop. I'm not building a house that big.
That's a big house.
And they're like, oh, you separate it. But then they still wouldn't, the metal building, they got real hung up. It's not our county. It's county south of here. They're really hung up on it. Our county will let you build, you could probably, go, I'm going to build out of cardboard. They'd be like, cool. Let's see it. That county down there, they were not playing. They tried to fine me $1,000 for cutting a tree down.
Oh, yeah. See,
and it fell. I didn't even cut the tree. It fell, and I was cutting it up.
It's not like the Wild West where we're at. But it's just a lot more, a lot more laid back.
Well, and that's up here. We couldn't, even once we got the house permit, we wouldn't have been able to live on it in an RV.
Oh, okay.
It was that. Here, they're like, oh, you're planning on building a house sometime in the next 20 years? Yeah, bring your RV up. No
Rock
problem.
and roll.
But it's just, we'll get to where we want to get eventually. So, speaking of shows, what's a show or event that you've never been to that you'd like to get to?
Oh man, Cars Behind Bars. That's it. The Joliet prison, the one that shut down, Blues Brothers over in Joliet, Illinois.
Okay.
They actually open up the courtyard and everything inside that prison and have a show. And I just found that this year, the week after it was over. And I'm looking at it going, man, I hope these are from last year. And I finally started checking the dates, and I went, oh, no. So that one's on the calendar again for next year.
Sweet. Keep that posted, because that sounds pretty cool.
Oh,
no one's brought that one up yet. So before we get out of here, what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody that's trying to get into the car culture?
Trying to get into the car culture. Don't worry so much about the labels. Just build something and be willing to ask for help. And when I say help, that could be advice, and that's a double-edged sword, right? You got to find somebody with a little bit of credibility, but to do that, you got to put yourself out there.
Yes,
I was willing to stick my head above the small town crowd, and it was with a little bit of push from a couple buddies,
yeah.
Right? But yeah, I guess you just have to be willing to ask. I've never had somebody call me and say, hey, I've laid out an entire plan for you. I've got all the parts together. I've got everything to make this work, and I'll do the work, and I'll give you all the advice.
Yeah.
Usually it's, hey, man, this would look good in your yard for $200 in a case of Miller Lite. Do you want it?
Yeah.
And from there, it's being willing to ask people, hey, man,
yeah.
Yep, what do I do for front axle? How do I set pinion angle, right? What's a good motor mount style for this? What have you done before? And a little bit of research on your own, but really just don't care about the labels. Put yourself out there and just ask people. Ask a million questions all the time.
That's very good. So, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to before I run through our list of advertisers?
That's a good question. Nobody really comes to mind, I guess. I would say probably, and my wife is going to laugh so hard at this, but probably my grandma. Okay, I'm a grandma's boy.
Okay.
I spent most of high school actually living with her. Still had a room at my folks' place. Just didn't get along with my dad at the time too well, and my grandma always just smiled and shook her head at all the rowdy shit that I did. So she's still around, still great, still very supportive. Probably doesn't understand the whole rat rod thing very much, but always good for some baked goods to swing by and show the cool shit that I build. So yeah, I would say if there's been one person that has unequivocally supported me through anything and everything, it's definitely my grandma. So just a quick shout out to her. And of course my wife. So she's put up with a lot of shit over the years, but always been supportive, especially with scheduling and just the logistics, because I think as guys, we're not real good about the finer details. I get the big picture. I put car together. I go to show. Oh no, where do I stay? Where do I stay? What do I eat? What do I pack in the cooler? She takes care of a lot of stuff behind the scenes too, especially being down here on vacation. That was all her doing. I just had to pack my own luggage and missed a couple things even doing that. So
it's definitely way easier to do what we do with support of significant others.
Yeah, there's a lot that gets taken off your plate you don't realize until after the fact.
And it's especially you had the business, you don't realize, or we realize, but on the outside people don't realize how much goes into it. Ashley still edits every podcast. And that's not normally a big thing, but right now it's 3 podcasts a week that she's editing. So and we're fixing to start dropping multiple episodes because of it. So it's like, or like you said, going somewhere, or can we make this work?
Yep.
How much do I not get, how many lunches do I have to skip to go buy that cross member or that piece of metal? Or Ashley even runs and goes and gets metal sometimes because the metal supply company that we work with closes at 5 and I get off at 5. So I either have to take a day off work to go get it or send her.
Yeah, so there's been many a cold supper put away in the fridge, supposed to be home on time and missing the deadline for sure. And she's always been very, very understanding of that.
It takes a special one.
It does, for sure.
Well, make sure you go show Why Not Fab on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok some love. Check out Throttle Addict. Use the code word Hot Rod to get save 15% off. Johnny Jalopy killed it on the logo again. Facebook, YouTube, JohnnyJalopy.com. Wrenching for the Future. They just had a new build, so another one should be coming soon. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Mr. Psycho Simmons with Psycho Fab. Cannot wait. Well, by the time this comes out, I'll already be up there with the Cadillac, but can't wait to see what you do on the roof of that car. No, I still have no idea what he's doing. Don't ask me. I know the car is going to be white, and I know what colors the roof's going to be, but I have no clue other than that. And also, by the time this comes out, thanks again, Mike Rowe. He was the official photographer for the Hangout 2026. Till next time, guys, get out and drive your shit. Later.